Win up to £25,000. The Community Lottery, a subscription-based lottery that allows you to continue to support good causes that matter. When you win, good causes win. Every month, eligible good causes have the opportunity to win a share of funds that could help them continue the good work that they do in our communities. To apply, there's no complicated forms, nor do you have to be a registered charity. Just grab your phone, send us a 60-second video explaining your good cause and the difference having extra funding would make to your project. Visit thecommunitylottery.com. Hit the play button and sign up for either 13 weekly draws or by direct debit for just £4.35 that gives you 4 weekly draws. You could have the chance of winning £25,000. The aim of the Community Lottery is to create an additional source of funding that will enable good causes to undertake innovative projects that matter. If you're in, the communities win.
The Reggae Star Factor family and Miche'l welcomes you to the Root Score. This is a live stream at Reggae Star Factor YouTube and Reggae Star Factor Facebook. The date, the 14th of May 2021. The time, 8 p.m. until 11 p.m. Featuring the legendary Little Roy with songs like Bongo Naya. Also songs like Reggae Soul.
People, I've got the reggae soul. People, you will want some more.
Also featuring the legendary 16 with songs like Love Is a Feeling.
I need a love I can feel.
And Holding Back the Years.
Holding back the years, holding back the tears I've had so long.
Also featuring the legendary Miss Joseph with songs like Prizes.
In every day, trust in the Father, He'll guide you on your way. Guidance in every way, teach my people not to go astray.
And also featuring the Queen of the Pack, the Queen Max with songs like Children of the Most High.
Don't fear no man, nor fear no beast. We only wanna live in
And also featuring Dr. King with songs like Higher Meditation.
So much inspiration.
This is definitely one not to be missed. Make it a date and don't delay.
You ready? You got me running. Shake it, shake it, shake it, baby. Raise your hands up. Raise them up.
Good evening, and welcome to the After Dark Show. This is your girl, Yvonne Michèle, and I am here as your host, as always, on this show where we talk about relationships. Yes. And I want to know, how have you been this week? How has your week been? I hope that it has been well and that you've had a good week so far. So for those of you who are on Facebook, welcome. Those of you who are on YouTube, welcome. You are all welcome here this evening. And as you're coming in to the After Dark room, I just want to bid you a good night as I can see you coming in. Good evening. Yes, thank you so much. I can see the compliments. Anjay says, looking great as always. Thank you very much, my lovely, my lovely, my lovely. So tonight is the night when we are going into deep conversation, but it's deep conversation from a different perspective. We're looking for solutions tonight. We're looking for solutions. Do you know what? I feel like I need to put, I feel like I need to put my chair up a bit. Yes, that's much better. They're out tonight, but nevertheless, let them be out tonight. The twins want to come out tonight. But anyway, I feel like I'm in the screen now. So guys, are we ready? Keyboard warriors at the ready this evening. This is an interactive show. We do like our audience to get involved in the show as much as possible. Now, this is a long-awaited show. This is the hidden issues in relationships, in particular, hidden relationships within the African Caribbean community. Not exclusively, but we are looking at the issues today. Now, we've had 2 shows with the men and we've had 2 shows with the women. And so that's a lot of talking from different perspectives. So we've heard the different perspectives. We've heard how the men feel, and we've also heard how the women feel. Tonight, we are coming together. We are bringing 2 men, 2 women, to bring about a conversation of solution. This is not a bashing episode. That's not what this is about. This is about us finding solutions so that we can move forward and that we can grow and that we can be the very best of who we are, and we can live in the highest expression of who we are as human beings, together or not. So tonight there may be agreeing to disagree. There may be some of that going on tonight, but we really are looking for solutions. So I am looking for those keyboard warriors at the ready with your input as well. And I want you to, when you're putting your comments on, remember that the comments go really quickly. So if it's a specific thing that you're referring to, just add a little bit of that into the context so that when we read out the answer, when we read out your response, we know from where you are coming from. Okay, so do I have your agreement in that? Good. I'm glad to hear it, even though I haven't heard an answer. Okay, so as everyone's coming in, good evening, Lee Willis. Good evening, good evening, good evening. As you are all coming in, Facebook user, Lady Yvonne Michèle, good. Now, those of you who are in the Facebook group, the membership group, at the top of the Facebook page, you will see something that says StreamYard. If you click that link, we will be able to see who you are. Okay, we will be able to see who you are, and then we will be able to give you a shout out to. Otherwise, you'll come up as Facebook user. Now, I am going to just make sure that because the screens are so close to me, all of them, I am going to have to put my glasses back on. There we go. Right, so let me just, I can see bits of my locks coming up. Let me just, there you go. Coming out, there you go. Right, come on. Am I not ready this evening? Okay. So, Melrose, Christopher, good evening. Lolly Lorraine's, good evening. Jemmy Reese, good evening. Michelle, good evening. Kim Sam Ram, Lee Willis, Michelle Malcolm, good evening, good evening. Good evening to everybody. Annie Mac, coming. Angie. Coming in, come on in. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to bring in our panel. So tonight's show is the hidden issues in relationships, according to us, and we are looking for the solution. It is all about the solution. So without further ado, I am going to welcome those who are in the green room. We're going to bring the ladies in first. Let's bring the ladies in first. Good evening, Faye. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I am wonderful as
Good
always.
evening, everybody that's watching.
It's always good to see you, Faye.
Thank you, and you.
Always good to see you. Who else do we have in here. Thank you for being here, Faye.
You're welcome.
Who else do we have?
Good evening.
Good evening, Miche'l Michel. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am wonderful, you know.
Looking lovely. Good evening, Faye.
Good evening, Miche'l
Looking
Michel.
wonderful.
And you. Beautiful,
Thank you.
beautiful.
Well, here are the queens. Now, tonight we have less people in the room because we want to find more solution. So less talking, I suppose, more solution. And so do we have our kings in the green room? Are they here? Good evening, Mr. Tony Crossbody. How are you?
Good evening, Yvonne. Good evening, Faye. Good evening,
Good
Michelle.
evening, Tony.
Good evening, Tony.
Nice to
How you
see
doing?
you.
It's nice to see
MrCee is
you.
running a little bit late, Yvonne. He will be here, but he'll be a little bit late.
Okay, no worries, no worries. You're looking very. Oh, there he is. Hello, MrCee.
Right on time, man. You see, we fooled you already. We fooled you already. I told you it would work, Tony.
You're trying it tonight, isn't it? You're trying it. So it's
Good
very
evening, good evening, ladies. Good evening, all.
Good
Good
evening,
evening,
Mr. C.
both looking very, very dapper indeed. Let me bring you bit on my screen. So welcome. It's been a while since I've seen you two gentlemen. So have you been?
Yeah, we've been good.
Very well, thank you.
We didn't want to be seen too much, otherwise you'll get tired of us. So we thought we'd stay away. And then wait until you decide you wanted to invite us back to your show. We didn't actually think we were coming back.
Listen,
you're always welcome.
I'm surprised that we're back here, Tony. I'm surprised.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Let's see what happened after tonight. Let's see what happened. You might not want to come back after tonight.
Good evening, Herbert, man. One of my old school friends, Herbert Burton. Big up yourself, my brother, and Michelle as well.
Oh, I didn't know that you knew Michelle and Herbie. They're very, very good friends of mine.
Wonderful people, man. Wonderful people.
Small world, isn't it? Small world.
I want to say good evening, Patrick Solomon. Good evening, sir. I didn't see you on the show today. Hope you're well.
And you know Patrick Solomon as well?
Well, he's a viewer on our show because we have our show before yours, right? So
right, yeah, that's right.
He tunes in, so I notice when he's not there.
Okay, yes, Mr. P, we call him. You see?
All right, Mr. P.
Mr. P. Yes, we love Mr. P. Mr. P also started off as one of our panel members on the show right back in the beginning. So yeah, he's a very, very good friend of the After Dark show. So. Yes, he's a very, very good friend. Right, so guys, we are going to get on with tonight's show. So we have been talking. I don't know if you've seen the other episodes, with the ladies, but we carried on the conversation. So you guys had your two shows, and one of your shows there was a few other men with you. And what we did the same kind of principle with the women. And so the women have had their show pose the same questions. And so tonight. What tonight is about us, recognizing that there are issues, recognizing that things have happened in the past, and recognizing now that we are going to draw a line in the sand and set about finding some solutions to this issue of relationships. And one of the fundamental reasons for this is because we are the elders. Now, really, I mean, there are elders, but we are the elders, and we are the ones who have to set the example for those young people coming up. So if we can't get it right, there is no hope for them. And it is bigger than us. It's bigger than this platform here, but it's a starting point. And if we can come to an agreement, if we can come to some kind of common ground, then we can start putting things in place for the youngsters and set a good example for them as well. And I think that that's fundamentally the most important thing because, like I said, we are the elders. So we've got less time in front of us. We've had our time behind us. So we have to be responsible and set the precedent now for the younger generation coming up. So, and it's funny because we are going to take a break on the After Dark show. We are having a little bit of a holiday, as you guys did on your What a Week show. Well deserved as well, because it takes a lot to do this week in, week out. And I was having a conversation with a younger person today, and he's 30 years old, or nearly 30, and he was saying that he's up for coming on the platform and talking from a younger person's perspective. And I'm all for that. So let us set the scene and leave this kind of series on a high, so that when they come, that we can hear what they have to say. And if they need a little bit of guidance, then we will be in the position to do that and do it well. So do we have an agreement tonight, ladies and gentlemen?
Sure do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. So what I will do is I will pick up some of the things that were mentioned from the other shows as a starting point, and then we can move forward and progress in the conversation. So these things are not specifically for us to pick and say, oh, well, they did this and the women did this and the men did that, but it's just as a starting point to kick off the conversation. And one of the things that was mentioned was, and I think from both sides, is misplaced trust. Right, so we're going to start the conversation right there, and how we can overcome this. How can we move away from this, and how can we heal? I think that's the most important. It's the healing. What do we need to do to heal the misplaced trust from the female perspective and from the male perspective? And so I'm going to come, because the men haven't been here and the ladies have been here. You were here last week talking about other things. I'm going to come in with the men first, and also from a place of leadership. I'm going to come to the men first and ask you, what do you think needs to change to bring about trust, or to heal that misplaced trust? And ladies, let me just put a caveat out there now. This is not for us to get sensitive. This is not for us to take what is said personally. These are general statements, not specifically shooting at any one person, but this is for us to heal. Okay? So I'm going to put that out to the guys. You know, there is a level of misplaced trust. And where do you think, and either one of you can answer or start off or kick off, where do you think we need to change or adjust to bring about healing?
Boy, Tony, you want to take this one?
Well, look, there are going to be people, men and women, who you can never trust. Right? It's just part of society. How we live. Not every man can be trustworthy. Not every woman can be trustworthy. But I think a lot of our problems have to do with the way we've been socialized. Right? Now, for those of you who watch our show, What a Week, you will know that we do a history section where we go into the origins of who the descendants of the transatlantic slave people are. And in that, we talk about effectively how we are a captive nation, socialized by the colonizers, right? So we're socialized through their TV, through their education system, through their churches. And with that, we are socialized, believe it or not to stick together. Right? Not just as a people, but definitely between men and women. And the way men have been socialized in the Caribbean community, if you listen to a lot of the music that we like so much, for example, like the dancehall, we're encouraged to be gallus, right? It's something that's encouraged. You're not a man unless you've got a number of women. So this socialization, which can put pressure on a lot of young men, leads to this situation where they are likely to have more than one woman. So that in itself creates mistrust right there. In return, women now have said, well, look, we can be like you too, right? And so many of them are embarking on a very sort of similar lifestyle. So that creates mistrust on both sides. And so where do you start? Where do you start with this? I think the start point is with you personally. It's like, where do you see yourself in this? How do you actually know how you're socialized? How has your upbringing affected your decisions in life? What are your standards and boundaries? And I think it's easy to as you said, Yvonne, to mud rake and to bash. But the hardest thing is to look at oneself. And for example, the last time we came on the show, one of the things I pointed out was, if we were to do a little chart of the people that we chose in our lives, I don't know if the viewers remember that, but I said if we were to actually do a list of the people that we chose and write out what went wrong, one of the common denominators we will find is that we were in all those relationships. So if those individuals we chose were of a certain character, then the first question is, well, what in myself draws these people to me? Because the problem is we can't continue to act as if we're victims and that, oh, you know, these evil men or these evil women are perpetrating this on me and, you know, and I'm suffering as a result. We have to ask questions of ourselves. So I think, in answer to your question, the trust issue has to start from within ourselves and to be honest with ourselves as to who we really are.
Thank you for that. Very comprehensive and rounded. And I agree. I totally agree that it does start with the self. We have to take responsibility. Going to bring you guys in. You know, now one of the things I'm going to say to you is that you've got 1.5 to 2 minutes to give your answers. We want to keep it snappy and want to keep it going, because we also want to get some comments from our keyboard warriors who are coming in fast and furious this evening. I can see them coming in. I'm just going to bring up, the only place I haven't brought up is Facebook, but we on YouTube, they are coming in fast and furious. So good evening, everybody. Welcome to the After Dark show. This show in particular is the hidden issues behind relationships within the African Caribbean communities. And we are talking to Tony Crossbody, MrCee, Faye, and Miche'l Michel. So this is our panel for tonight, and we are going to keep it moving really quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in one of the ladies, then we'll bring in MrCee, and then we'll bring in the ladies. So just keep it moving in that direction. Okay, so Miche'l Michel, would you like to come in?
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, I have to say, I do agree with Tony on a lot of that. There is a lot to do with socialization, and I think a lot of people haven't even realized how much our thought processes are guided by other things. When it comes to relationships, we do need to listen. It does start with ourselves, but we need to listen, because we have to understand that not everybody is at the same stage. We're all at different stages in our journey, and therefore there's no point in really starting a relationship when you already know that that person isn't quite there where you are yet. I think at this point, because as you mentioned, Yvonne, we are the elders, I don't think at this stage that we're looking to mold and change people too much. They need to be on their own growth journey, but you have to have a level of understanding. So if you meet somebody new and you're thinking about embarking on a relationship with them, you really, really have to listen at the beginning to see where they are, to see whether or not they've reached that level that you need them to be at before you can embark on anything together. So yes, it starts with self, knowing yourself, realizing that socialization has had such an impact on us and that we need to amend how that has affected us, and that's quite a slow process in some people's cases. And also then, once we know ourselves, listen to who it is that's in front of us before we even entertain it, because otherwise we're just going to end up in a situation where there is no trust, and that's not what we're looking for.
Thank you. MrCee.
No, fantastic, Michelle and Tony. Really, really lovely thoughts and ideals, and I definitely agree with both of you. For me, trust is trust is a funny thing. I think that before I even get into my definition of trust, I think what it is, you know, again, the problem what people have with trust is once trust has been broken, they now rely on that situation or that person to now dictate the rest of their future, which is, to me, is a nonsense. So when you talk about, when you hear people talking about they've got trust issues, it relates back to a time in their past and a person in their past who's no longer in their lives. However, now that negative thing, what happened way back, whenever it was, is now affecting their current situation today and also their future. And this is where, again, like we've had the echoes of, this is where you have to start taking responsibilities about how you think. So you've got to understand that, you know, forgiveness plays a big part in it, man. In trust, in order to move forward with your new partner, with new people, in order to regain a level of control with trust, you have to learn how to forgive. You have to, no matter what's been done to you by that person before, because otherwise, if you don't forgive, if you carry that through, you're going to have trust issues in your new relationships, number one. So again, I think it's about how you base your foundation so that everything that happens to you in a mistrustful situation, that was meant to happen to you because it's a lesson for you to learn. So accept that. That, you know, when things go wrong in a relationship, it's feedback. That's what it is. Accept it, learn the lessons, and apply it. Forgive, apply it in your new relationship. Again, we've all got the triggers. We all have them that we'll see that when we're in that new relationship, that the current partner will display something which reminds us of that terrible situation before. But the triggers come up straight away, and they're like, "Oh, I don't like that word. Don't say that word to me." And what we're doing, we're bringing the attitude and the negative energy from that past relationship now to this moment, where this person who's like, for example, I had a previous partner used to always, she hated me saying to her, "Oh, can you do me a favor? Can you just, oh, I don't like favors because blah, blah, blah." So what happened was, in the end, I started not liking when people said to me, "Oh, see, do me a favor." No, don't tell me do a favor. Just tell me that what you want me to do or not. And then I had to check myself and say, why are you behaving like this? Oh, it's because of her. So now I brought this negative feeling into this moment now. So I'm like, so what are you going to do about it? Deal with it. If somebody wants you to do a favor, it's not, we just deal with what they want you to do. So you have to kind of manage yourself as well. And most importantly, you have to have those foundations regards to, you know, as my mum would call it, equal yoke. Understand what your foundation and your basics are, and don't compromise on them. You know, because a lot of us, we meet people and we get these gut instincts which kick up, but because of our westernized behavior, i.e. the person looks so good that you're thinking, boy, you know what, boy, I'm boxing above my weight here. Or the person looks, the body shape is perfect, or they're 6'2" or whatever, but you still, that little gut instinct tell you something not right with this one, you know, Masa. Or most importantly, they've got lots of money, or they've got lots of property, or they're in a high position job. So we want to attach ourselves to those westernized values. And so we make compromises beneath our standards and beneath our gut instincts. And that's why a lot of us have trust issues. So for myself going forward is that in order to deal with some of the trust issues, I like to give myself different kind of thought patterns. So it's like, I don't need to trust anybody to be in a relationship with them. To me, trust is bullshit. I don't need to trust you because your behavior will determine how I need to behave with you. And that's all I need to concentrate on. I don't need to trust you. Trust doesn't come into it. It's about your behavior. So I eliminate the word trust. So I tell you what my values are. I tell you what will happen if you do not behave in the way how I would like you to behave when we have problems. And then I will base my relationship on how I am with you based on that behavior. But trust doesn't come into it for me.
Okay, thank you for that. One of the things I wanted to pick up on is what, in terms of, because you talked about standards, and it's not for you to answer now, but after Faye said what she has to say, is talking about the European or the westernized standards. What are the difference between the two? And this is because this is about information. This is about, you know, educating people with some kinds of understanding. And so it would be good as a foundation if we knew for sure what were the differences between westernized standards and our African Caribbean standards of what we were taken away from. So if we could get some understanding of that, I think that would be good. But I'm going to bring in Faye to answer the same question, really. You know, how do we, I mean, I think a good question would be is how do we heal from the mistrust? And we know that there is mistrust, but how do we heal now from that? So it's just to add that on a little bit, because I don't think that that's been answered.
I would sort of echo everything that everybody else has said, and I would also add the healing starts with us, of course. It starts with you personally. So if you know that you display bad behavior, and we all know what bad behavior is, and there, that's where the trust issues come into it, because a lot of the time it's not the other person that we don't trust, it's ourselves we don't trust, because we know that we've displayed bad behavior. And so when we say we have trust issues, it's usually I find it's usually with the individual themselves and what they've done in the past and what they're bringing forward with themselves, and they haven't done the talking, they haven't done the healing, they haven't done all the things that is necessary for them to heal. And a lot of the time we need to take a minute to reflect on where things have gone wrong in our relationships, because going from one relationship to another relationship to another relationship, we never seem to have that time. We never seem to give ourselves that time to be able to chill and, you know, process what went wrong, process where we went wrong, process where the other person went wrong, and try not to make those same mistakes. So I think the people that we attract are the people that we've always attracted, because we don't take the time to process what went wrong. And that goes with us, and it goes with the other people involved. The other thing I would say is we need to call out bad behavior. And I said this in the women's, when I was on the women's panel, you know, we have friends, we have colleagues, or, you know, we have people in our lives where they are going to be cheating, they are going to be doing these things, they are going to be cursing their partner out, and we need to call it out. We need to have the courage to call out this behavior, because this is not going to help us at all as a community to heal. So, you know, so often we laugh at it, or we think, oh, it's okay because they acted this way and we should react this way. And that's really, really not the way for us to be able to come together as a community and progress as a community. The other thing I would say is I really don't want to be called out by anybody because I want to date a black man. You know, that's what I want to date. So I don't want to be told, oh, you should go somewhere else these are people within my own community, and I don't want to hear that. And I don't want to be told that I need to go somewhere else to find where my future is. My future is with the person that looks like me, smells like me, and lays down next to me and can grow and build with me. I don't think that can come from anywhere else. And if anybody's upset about that, that's just tough. But I don't want to be told that that can happen with someone else when that's what I want.
Thank you, Faye. Very firmly said. And Mr. Crossbody was there clapping as well. You like that, Mr. Crossbody? That is good. So we've heard, guys, there's been a lot of comments on the thread. One in particular, trust issues means different things to different people. That's from, I think that's Carl. Carl, is that you, Carl Perkins? I think C Perkins. I think that's Carl. It means different things to different people. Jennifer Simpson says action speaks louder than words. Someone is saying, is MrCee married? It's Adrian Minor. Is that Minor how you pronounce your name? Is saying, is MrCee married? Tony Cox says some people choose polyamorous relationships. A host of women are happy to be a side chick. Well, that's it's something, but we're not there yet, Tony. We're not there yet. We are looking for a solution. We are not looking to be side chicks, as you put it, but I think we are looking at loving, fulfilling relationships. And, I think that's just a cop-out. That's my personal opinion. We need to work this through. We need to talk it and unpick it, unravel it, and see what we really come up with. It's just too easy to say, well, yeah, just be someone's side chick. No, we want to make a change. And this isn't really about us. This is about our young people coming up as well. So I'm going to pose that question again that I asked before in terms of the differences. And I know that probably Tony Crossbody, I don't know if MrCee is going to answer the question, in terms of the differences in terms of standards of relationships from the westernized perspective to the African perspective. I don't know who wants to answer that question, but I think it would be good to know.
Okay, let me take that. A lot of people would find it surprising. And my uncles, who are St. Lucian, made me notice, and I was very surprised that up until about the 60s, they were still practicing arranged marriages in St. Lucia.
Mm-hmm.
Right? My grandmother told my uncle who he was to marry. And if he didn't marry that woman, then she would not sign him the deeds to her land. Right? So I was quite surprised to hear that, because I didn't realize, well, one, it wasn't a community, and two, it was occurring as late as sort of late 50s, early 60s. And apparently what they used to do is when a man was interested in the woman, the family would get involved. So the brothers of the woman would come and check the man, right? And have a chat and feel him out. And then the families would meet. And then questions will be asked. What's the family like? Do they have mental illness in their family? What's their general health like? What is their reputation in the community like? And if certain boxes were not ticked, then certain people couldn't get married, right? So that's the culture that they had sort of passed on to and told me that. Now we're here, we look at things a bit more independently, which is I go out there with my little inexperienced self at 18, 19, I pick a woman, right? And I'll decide whether or not she's right for me or not, right? There's no oversight, right? You just go with your feelings. This is what society has taught us. So you watch a lot of these films, these romantic movies, and they're all about, oh, he makes me feel like this, or he makes me feel like that. And you just go with those feelings. And sometimes there are things in front of you that are so obvious as to why you shouldn't date this person that you override them. So for men, it's going to be something physical that they look at, right? And they're gonna override their own intuition to date this woman, right? For a woman, it's something else that they're gonna see in the man, maybe something about him that they are attracted to. Even though something doesn't feel right, they'll still go with him. So the thing is, when you trust in yourself alone to pick someone without experienced eyes to help you along the way, particularly with regard to your parents, for example, then what happened? You're left with your little inexperienced self to make a decision that's going to have ramifications 30, 40 years down the road. And I think that's the difference in the way we now, in the way we date, is that the elders before had some form of guidance and they had structure, certainly in the Caribbean. And I know St. Lucia isn't the only place that used to practice this.
Yeah.
So, but we don't have that. We're very independent. We want to do things like we go and move out and live by ourselves. Then we bring a woman around, we have a relationship with her, and then, oh, this is not working out. Oh, sorry, you're pregnant. Now what do I do? And I think there are sort of safeguards. All right, we can't practice this now because we're in a different place, a different time. But could we, for example, before we commit to someone, introduce the person to a sister? If you're a woman, your brother, your cousin. Before you get deeply involved with this individual, let them sniff this individual out for you. Because men know men very well, just like women know women. And you can always trust a woman to suss another woman out with no bias. And the same thing with a man. And I think that could help in terms of giving you another pair of eyes and not allowing you to run away with your feelings.
Thank you for that. And you know what? I just want to add to that because, and I'm going to quickly say this. Last October, I wrote a book with some people from the Windrush generation called The Journey Beyond Windrush. And one of the stories was from Mr. Fevier, who is from Dominica. And when he came over to this country to work, he came to meet his dad and his brother. And then the dad went back and it was just him and his brother. And he said it came time for him to find a wife. And he wrote back to his dad and asked him, could he find him a wife? So because he said what he had come over here to find, in terms of the kind of woman that he wanted, he didn't see that here. And so he wrote back to his dad, and his dad actually set up the marriage. And Mrs. now Fevier, and I think they've been married for like 50 odd years now, came over to England. They got married, had their children, and they're now back in Dominica, happily married, had their children, have grandchildren. And that was a story, and that was his story in the book of how he found love. So I'm just saying that to say that, you know, to back up exactly what you're saying. I know that from the Caribbean that was done as well. They were very much in your business like that. Whereas now everybody's left to their own devices. My thing is, I'm going to ask a question. Do you think that sex before marriage has helped this hidden issue or not? MrCee's taking himself out. You don't want to answer that question, MrCee? I want to answer that. I just want to pose that question. Do you think that this is part of the problem, that it's too free and easy? Whereas back then...
Before you answer, can I just give you a very, very 2-minute or 1-minute sort of history of this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, so during the World War II period, right, the moral climate was very different to what it is now, right? If you had a child out of wedlock, right, that was looked down upon, very much so, right? It was the 60s with the sexual revolution, which is what they call it, which really changed the way men and women related. It was in the 60s that miniskirts came in. It was in the 60s that the birth control pill came in. It was in 1967 when the abortion laws were changed after 100 years, because prior to that, if women had an abortion, they would be locked up for life. That was called the Offences of the Person Act of 1861. In 1967, they repealed that law. So, and it was in the 60s that LSD, drugs, free love, hippie lifestyle, this all came, and it was a counterculture. So what this did, it made it easier to have sex without the consequence of having children out of wedlock, right? Or children at all, so you could have sex without consequence, right? And free love was available to all. Now, for those of us who are 50 or 60, we were, by the time we got to teenagehood or young adulthood, we were already growing up in a culture that had been changed. See, so by the 70s and by the 80s, this whole thing about free love and you can have sex without consequence, that was the norm. But that was a change that was created from the 60s onwards, because prior to that, the moral standards were very different. So sorry, I just wanted to make that point because it hasn't always been like this.
Okay. And it's good to have that foundation so that we can build on this, so we know what this has come from. Because to hear and for that memory to come back from, and you saying about, you go to the elders or the sisters and you introduce the person and everybody's involved in that relationship. Because when I look back at the older relationships that have been gone before us, my aunt and uncle have been married for nearly 70 years. I think it's more than that, actually. They've been, and that's it. My cousins are big people to me. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's, and they've had their marriage and it's been solid. I'm not saying that every marriage has survived, but a lot of marriages did back then. So my question, my thoughts are, why are relationships not working as much now within our community? What has gone wrong? What has gone wrong? So, we've looked at the trust and we realize and recognize that it does start with us. Everything starts with us. Everything starts with me. So on the chat, as I would normally do when I'm doing one of my workshops, I want the guys who are on the chat, who are willing and are ready to actually start to look for meaningful relationships. I want you to write on the chat, everything starts with me. Not me, you, but you're going to write as a declaration to yourself, everything starts with me. Well, if you're ready for real love, true love, if you're ready to start a relationship, one with yourself and others, write it down. Everything starts with me, because the blame game is done. We're not doing that anymore. We're taking responsibility. Yeah. Miss Sugar Sweet says, I'm a 60s baby born in the free spirit of in the hippie days. Where is the love we were born in? I don't know. I was a 60s baby too. And there was lots of love. That's right. Everything starts with me. Write it on the chat. Write it on the chat. Everything starts with me. Because even though we are here talking, we are collaborating as one. And if we're all going to take responsibility, that means that we can start to create a wave of change. It only takes a one stone to create a ripple. Okay. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us, 5 stones in the water that will make a big splash. Okay. Right. So you mentioned, Tony Crossbody, you mentioned the history of who we are. You mentioned about the TV, you mentioned church, you mentioned education bringing about division. And so bearing in mind, we've got television anyway right now. I don't even watch TV, right? But we have that, and we have it now. How do we now steer our young people in terms of changing the mindset and how they are now interacting? Or how, actually, let's not start with the young people. Let's start with us, singletons, because there's many on here, many who don't necessarily want to be single. How do we start to change the mindset? We know that people are writing, I'm loving it. People are writing, everything starts with me. Good, good, good. It starts with you. That's right. Everything starts with me. So people are trying to take responsibility. But how do we grow it from here? Do we have any suggestions? I'm just going to throw it out. Miche'l Michel.
Well, just before go to any suggestions, can I just mention something that Tony said when it came to somebody in the of our elders arranging our marriages in a way and choosing for us, perhaps that has to presuppose that the person doing it was stable, because as I said at the beginning, not everybody is at the same stage. So somebody might be making a choice for you or helping you towards a choice, and they have their own issues going on. So I just wanted to add that in. And also, those of us that were born in the 70s, yes, there was free love in the 60s and all of this and hippie life in the 70s, but there was also the AIDS and HIV epidemic of the 80s and 90s. And being a teenager at that time, I do remember the fear of relationships, because it did go from that point from being something that was seen as just in one community to spread into other communities. So we had that. And then now we've gone back to a place where free love seems to be okay again, because nobody seems to be dying from anything at the moment. So I just wanted to add that in, because it wasn't all free love all the way through. What can we do? I think we have to just take some time out with ourselves. That's the main thing that we have to do, and know ourselves if we want to go forward, and set good examples, especially when it comes to the youngers. What is it they see in relationships? What is it they see in the media? We do need to call things out. I said this on the last show before. We have situations that we laugh and share about where people are not honouring their family members. There's lots of these people that are comedians that are trying to make their way, the younger ones coming up, and they're ridiculing members of their family for jokes, and everybody shares it. It's not funny, in my opinion. You know, we need to, as I say, we need to honour each other. We need to elevate everybody. And then we will all come at each other from a better place. So whether or not you're looking for a relationship, just having some positivity about you is so, so important. And I'm just a bit tired of seeing that kind of sad behavior, talking about what girls look like, what your mum does, you know, ridiculing people. Let's stop doing that. Honor each other and find good points in people. And then maybe we can be more open and relaxed and have a little bit more trust in each other, because we feel that that person is genuine. You feel a genuine vibe from somebody.
Thanks for that, Michelle. What I got out of that, there's a lot in that, what you've just said, a lot in that. But what came to me is that manners and respect have changed. There's
definitely,
and I don't know if you guys, being the men, I see the women are nodding, but I don't know if you guys feel that in terms of how we relate to one another. Michelle was saying about honouring each other, but how do we change that? Because, you know, we are living in a world now where, you know, a man would address a woman as a gal. What was it the man said to me? I was walking in London, it was last year, and I walked past and the man said, "You look like a snack." I nearly dead.
Not a whole snack.
A snack, you know, a snack. I was like, oh, what a juice. What's this man talking about? A snack. And my face is my face, yeah? So my face would just tell a man XYZ. But I couldn't, but what I'm saying is how we relate. The man's walking past me like, man wants to talk to me, and the man's calling me a snack. I don't look like a snack. I could never be classed. There's a whole meal. White card, starters, main.
3 courses.
Actually, no, I'm 7. Hello. I'm just saying. Or 9. But the whole time. But the point of the matter is that in our parents, that would never happen in our parents' day. I would dare to say that. So, you know, how do we change the way how we are interacting with each other so that we can bring about respect? Yeah, a snack, what, a packet of peanut, LOL. Jemmy Reese, behave yourself. You could never call me a packet of peanut. No, sir. Mm-mm. No, I'm very filling. Anyway, moving on. So guys, what do you, I mean, If a woman walked past you and called you a snack, how would you respond to that? Or something of that nature?
Wouldn't have any effect on me at all. Because for me, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to have a good look at her and see if she fits in with my criteria. So I may take that as an invitation to converse. If it doesn't fit my criteria, if it's funny and where she delivers it, I might laugh and we might have some banter. If she's completely off my criteria and she said it in a demeaning way, then I'll take it as an insult and move about my business. Or I might have a even cheekier reply to send to her. So that's what it would be based on. However, the point that you're making is a very valid one. It's one where, you know, it's at with the music debate at the moment that, you know, something needs to change as regards to the way how through music and therefore through slang and through normal conversation we talk about each other. And something has to change, otherwise it will get worse. It won't get better, it will get worse. So again, it's another a form of programming, and what you say is what will happen in your life. So, you know, if you talk about people being bitches and hoes and dogs and God knows what else and niggers and whatever, then you can never rise above that value. You see what I mean? Because that's where you're vibrating at. That's how you see yourselves, and that's how you see your peers. So you can never really get any higher than that. I'm not saying everybody. There's some people who can still use that language and still have a wonderful, loving, and deep and meaningful relationship with another bitch or my nigger. I've seen it. I've got people who I follow. I know Michelle's covering her face because she doesn't like the word, but I'm not one of those who's afraid to use the word because, yeah, that's how it is for those people. That's how they talk. So I don't believe in censorship either. So, but I think the majority of people are easily to be brainwashed and programmed, and that's where we do have a problem within our community of how we see each other, and it needs to be challenged and it needs to be changed.
Can I just add something though? Just going back a little bit about the parents, our parents. A lot of people have been saying in the chat, our parents would never do this, our parents would never do that. Can we keep it a little bit more real? Our parents, a lot of them, I'm not saying any of our personal parents, but that generation, whereas some people inherit money, wealth, and property, when it comes to us, a lot of the time, when the parent passes on, we are inheriting families we didn't know about and debts. So let's not say that let's not just romanticize about that time. There were some great ones. There were many that were not so good either. And not all of them had the capacity to give us guidance in relationships. Not all of them had good relationships themselves. And we know that as well as the sexual revolution that Tony was talking about in terms of contraception and all of that, we also had the fact that many women didn't work, things like that. So you didn't have any independence. So if you wanted to remove yourself from that situation, you couldn't, you were stuck. So you had to put up with many things. So I just wanted to add that in because it's not as straightforward as it was coming across. I have nothing to say on the points that you just made, MrCee, even though I covered my face. It wasn't directed directly at you.
Oh, thanks, Michelle. I just want to pick up on what Michelle was saying as well there. That yeah, because it's really interesting to understand that our parents and our grandparents come from a generation where, you know, like what Tony was alluding to with this whole arranged marriage thing, they had a criteria. So even like our parents, even though they were you know, for them, they was in the 60s, like how our children are in the internet now. It's something which was thrust upon them. They had no choice but to adapt to it. And like the way how our children at 13, 14 are watching full-blown porn on the internet that's how our parents from the West, from the Caribbean, came here into this melting pot of drugs, rock and roll and everything. And they were trying to assimilate in this culture. However, what they did have, though, was some very, very good basic ground rules as regards to what they was looking for in a partner. So, you know, it may have been on, can she cook, clean, blah, blah, blah. Is he working? Does he understand about the family? No matter what happens, he's going to come home tonight, blah, blah, blah. He's always going to make sure that there's money on the table. Even though he's a gambler, blah, blah, blah. He's going to make sure that the mortgage or the rent is paid first. There was a foundation that they had, where they came from, and that allowed things to still maintain. So even though they had the little child out of wedlock and they had this little thing going on and whatever, they still managed as a couple to reach 50, 60 years worth of marriage. Whereas, like, I feel like our generation now and some of the younger generation, we don't have none of that foundation, that basic thing, saying that, you know what, no matter what happens as a man, I'm always going to make sure that, you know, I'm always going to be there for my children, that there's always going to be money. There's no specific rules now, I feel. It's just like, boy, I'm just looking out for myself. And I think that's what the big difference is that they had value, man. They had values and morals. And I think our morals have become kind of loose now.
MrCee, I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. That and there was a thing, no matter what, there was food on the table, whatever was paid. But now it's like it's a selfishness. So we kind of agree. I think we all agree. Are we all agreeing on that? Yeah. I think that how do we move away from that? How do we change that amongst ourselves? And I know it is about us working on ourselves, right? First. But how? How do we do that when each party wants to be right? Each party, he's full of his ego and she's full of her she-go. How do we navigate? Because there's so many broken relationships, so many hurting people right now. Even on this chat, there's people who are pissed off with their last partner, and anytime you talk to them, they've she did, he did. So how do we change that? That, for me, the healing has to take place, and I suppose it's with responsibility. But how else can we as the elders start to steer our peers in the right way? And I'm also going to put in, when you've got relationship coaches, like, dare I mention them? No, they're not getting mentioned. Yes, MrCee, come right forward in the camera. And this is what we're aspiring to. This is what we're looking to. We're like feeding, like we're waiting, like for the crumbs to drop out of their mouths. But we're not moving any further forward. Our community is in a state of emergency. That's the reality of it. And the truth is, what are we going to do about that to help those who are coming, to help ourselves, but to help those who are coming behind us? How do we do that? How do we do that? Mr. Crossbody, your face is set like you have something to say. Like,
I'm not going to say that. Let Faye talk. Faye's not said nothing yet. I'm sure she's got some thoughts. We'll come back to me in a while.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I was going to agree with everything that MrCee said. Actually, I didn't. There wasn't anything that I needed to add there, but I do think in starting with ourselves, I mean, I can speak for women, I guess, in terms of some of us have a revolving door of different people coming in our homes and being around our children and being around the people that we care about, and we need to slow down with that, or even just not bring these people around our children until we know, you know, that that particular person is right. And I think in trying to influence the next generation, we need to look at that behavior and really stop and think about what we are doing to our children. Because if our children are seeing a revolving door of different partners coming through, that is not going to help them know what a healthy relationship is, because this person's here for 3 months and this next person's here for 6 months and the next person's here for 9 months. That's not healthy at all. And we need to come out of the stigmas of being able to seek help, because I think that's very important. Finding avenues in which we can talk to someone else outside of our relationships, because as Tony said, we choose for ourselves and sometimes we don't choose correctly. So and we need that intervention sometimes, and we need to be able to go to somebody who we trust and who will give us informed information about what is right and what is going wrong. And we need to be able to accept that, because so many times we talk to our friends and say, you shouldn't be doing that. But then they turn around and say, well, this is how I'm going to do it and this is my relationship. Sometimes you need to listen, because from the outside looking in, you see more. When you're inside a situation, you see a lot less. And I think we really need to listen to our peers. We need to listen and seek help if we need it, because a lot of the time we it's a stigma for us, and especially in our community. We just need to think about how we strengthen our relationships instead of just giving up. We easily give up, and it's like a throwaway society, just like the guy who says, oh, you're a snack. I mean, who did he say that to last? Who received that he could then go out and say that again? Mm-hmm. So that person who received it last and gave him props for that, why did they give them props for that? Is that a self-esteem issue? Is that what is that about? Because if somebody called me a snack, they will never, I would hope that they would never call another person that again, because I would call them out on that and say, that's not how you talk to somebody.
Rude is the word.
Rude. And the thing is, when you turn around and say it's rude, they then react in a negative way. Instead of knowing that's rude, they think that is the right way to talk to somebody. And when you call them out, it's like, okay, you get a barrage of abuse back and say, oh, you're this and you're that, and they're assuming who you are before they didn't even approach you right. But when you turn around and say that wasn't right, you get the abuse, and that's not correct.
Absolutely. Rude and rank, that's the word. And when you know who you are, you whatever backlash that comes, you deal with it, which it was dealt with. And if this person remembers my face and is watching the show, because you cannot mistake this hairstyle, I tell you that, then they will know. Don't ever do that again. Oh.
Sorry, can I play devil's advocate on that scenario, please? From a man, my man brain is saying, but hold on, if you're walking down the street, it's a sunny day, sun is shining, look at this, look at the beautiful array of sisters that we've got at the top line here. And I look at you and the sun is photosynthesizing on your skin. I said, "Wow, sister, you look like a nice snack, Hey, you can tell from my demeanor, my voice, the smile on my face, the way my shoulders are going. Hey, that's a compliment."
No, it's not.
But could you not use another word?
That's a compliment.
I mean,
I
why
went
a
to school.
snack?
I went to
snack
school in
is something
England.
that's quick and easy. To me, a snack is something that you just pop in your mouth and it's quick and easy. So why a snack? Why that particular word? So is there another word that you could use instead of a snack? Because we would receive it better. I think
this is part of the education. But I may say, but you know what? It's true. Say, I'm dinner. We are teen. I just wanted something to a little.
But that's the point. That's the point. We're not the throwaway. We're not the.
But this is the problem. What sometimes as women we don't understand is that him saying to you, referring to you as a snack, you can tell whether a man's really persistent and he's saying that he wants you because he would try and engage conversation with you. That's just his way of throwing out a compliment to say that, you know what, on his journey in life today, you're just that little bit of sunshine that's brightening up his day. And that's his way of saying, thank you, sis.
So just say you're the sunshine that's brightened up my day. Don't say you're a snack.
Look, let me just put it this way. I am not a child. I'm not a teenager. I'm a grown woman. Yeah? And when you are approaching a grown woman, you need to approach her with some kind of finesse and look at a person and see the elegance of who she is. Don't try it with me. Sorry.
But
and I'm just saying, this is how I am because I have a standard. And I'm not dropping my standard because I know who I am and I know what I'm worth. And this is the point where certain people, and it works both ways. It works both ways. These are the issues of why we don't get on.
So basically, that's just a long way of you three saying that you're stush.
I never said anything to do with that.
I'm just being devil's advocate. Go on, sorry.
But if you might, okay, let's play devil's advocate then. So somebody might walk up, you might say to a woman going down the road, you know, you're a whole snack, baby love, and all that business. And what if she turns around and says to you, oh, I'll drink you like a tango? And what? See your face, exactly. So let's move on. That is just trifling. We're not even talking about that sort of stuff. We need to elevate ourselves a lot more. If someone has the right to say whatever they want, it's free speech. You have a right to listen and feel complimented. You have a right to feel insulted, depending on how you feel. But you're not, or you shouldn't let that person affect you for the rest of your days or for the rest of your day, because that's them and where they are in their journey. It might be someone that says that to 15 women, hoping that one takes the bait, and one might, or not. No biggie. You move on if that's not what you want to hear. If you want to hear it, you turn around and say, well, hi, baby love, what you saying? And then you do the revolving door. But going on about that revolving door, I don't know what that's about, because I don't really know many people that have a revolving door. So I think we need to be a little bit mindful of that, and saying that women have a revolving door, because men also have a revolving door. Because as Tony said a few weeks ago, who's it they're sleeping with then? So let's move ourselves away from that. Let's look at our spirituality. Let's look at our journey. Let's look at self-reflection. Let's look at groups like this talking about things and moving forward and having good conversations, listening out to what somebody says. So if somebody says to you about being a Dorito or a snack, or they want you to be a hula hoop that they suck off their finger, you know to move on. That's not what you're looking for. Move in better circles then. You're not looking to hear what the man that's standing outside the bookie is saying to you. End of.
Well said, Michelle. Well said.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. And this is why, you know, bringing it back, this is why, you know, there is so much mistrust. I mean, for me, that you know, let me just bring up, there would be certain women who would accept that, right? This is where it comes in. They would accept the talk. They would talk to the man. Snack business might go on. You might crack a few nuts and then move on, all right? But then she's left, or maybe he's left. Whoever's feeling, because someone's going to feel away, because that's normally how it happens. And then he did this or she did that, and then and that's how it goes. And then it's all men are dogs, all women are dogs, all this, all that. And this is where we get to this thing where we can't overcome the hurt, the pain, and the shame of things happening. So we have to learn to treat each other with value from the get-go.
And most importantly,
the whole Americanism of snack needs to be put in the bin, because that's not valuing anybody. Go on, MrCee.
Yeah, no, listen, that's perfectly it. I think the way how Michelle handled the whole situation and my question and me being the cheeky chappy is perfect of showing you how a woman who knows her value and knows her standards responds in that kind of moment. And that's how, for us as men, that's how we learn. You know, that's how we learn. It's like, I remember when I was at school and one of the girls, when I asked her if she was a virgin, she slapped my face. And that was a lesson for me to learn in how I'm supposed to approach a woman and talk. Just because my friend them who are dating the white girl them and them that me see them, I do them I chat them kind of foolish chat with the white girl them. Don't come and bring that to one of your queens, bro. And she as soon as the dot come out of my mouth, she slapped me straight across my face. And I learned that lesson from that moment of that I can't approach black women like that. So it is about values. It's about basics, about foundation. And again, it's something that we have to try and teach each other, that there's levels to how we should communicate with each other and the language we should be using. Definitely.
Absolutely. So, you know, we've been talking about a lot of, you know, we brought a little bit of humor into it and thought of, you know, throw in this situation happened last year. You know, what do you think of that in terms of, because we were talking about manners, respect, value. And so if you're approached like that, sometimes, because I hear it all the time, men are this, and we've heard it, women are this. We've heard that. We've heard it from both ways. You know, men are what this, men are this, men are that, women are this, women are that. But if we backtrack and we look at how we are talking to one another, how we are respecting and valuing in each other, surely that is a place to even start to change and navigate how we treat each other, to start to rebuild trust. One, we know that we have to build trust in ourselves first and foremost, but then after we build the trust in ourselves, we then have to build the trust and have trust in others in order to build healthy relationships. But what happens, what I recognize, and some of the women have said to me, and what came out in the last conversations, the last 4 conversations, is competition. How there's a competitiveness, like the woman wants to be the man, and in some cases the man wants to be the woman. Yeah, I said it. And so, you know, how do we eliminate this from our relationships, this competition thing that we have going on? Anybody can jump in when you're ready.
We have to talk at first when we meet people. We have to really, really listen to what they say. Yes, as you say, talk to understand, or listen to understand. Right? So that you know whether or not that person's going to ever be on your wavelength. And we also need to, perhaps we need to elevate or talk about more the people that are positive, because there are lots of us that are really positive. There are lots of us that don't have revolving doors. There are lots of us that don't hold our children from our former partners, that we get on quite well with our former partners when we can. There's lots of us that do that, but we don't hear about that at all. So maybe we just need to change the focus, and maybe we need to just cut out some of those negative social medias that we see, and not just accept it and move on and say, oh, well, that's not for me. We need to call it out a lot more, because we complain amongst ourselves, but what do we actually do? What do? We don't really do much. We turn the screen a different color for a day, but we don't really do anything. So we need to do a lot better on a positive angle for ourselves, don't we? A lot better, because there are lots and lots and lots of positive people out there.
That's very true. Lots of positive relationships, but we still have this competition going on. Men, I want you to come in and talk on that.
Yeah, there is. How do you stop it? Simple answer, you won't. Why? Because there are outside forces that are pressing in on the Western world in terms of socially changing the way people basically deal with each other, right? So that what that creates is a space between the genders, so they can't get along. We have various agendas. You can't miss it if you watch TV. It's all over the place, right? There's an LGBT agenda. There's a feminism agenda. There is an agenda to break up the nuclear family, right? If you go and look at Black Lives Matter website in their about page, they tell you all about that, right? To smash the patriarchy. So that is the basic fundamental building blocks of a family. You destroy that, basically men and women will not get along. So that's the first thing to recognize. It's not just something that you can do within yourself. You have to recognize that there are influences on the outside. And when we watch TV, we don't appreciate how we are being subconsciously manipulated against each other in that regard. So that's the major problem that we have. And I think recognizing that is a start, because we can then control our TV viewing, right? And I think the other thing is to understand that we are very much related. One of my prime missions moving forward for me is to teach this history and to show that the descendants of the transatlantic are a special people, and that they are bonded by a very deep spiritual history. And one of the reasons why this is happening to us is spirituals. I think a couple of people mentioned that in their comments. I just happened to sort of see it. But we have a spiritual problem, which is having these sort of physical manifestations within our community. And we think that we can address it by perhaps addressing them directly, but actually the problem is far deeper than that. Even to the question of dealing with oneself. Some of us actually need therapy and counseling because of the sort of hardships we've had to endure growing up, right? And again, that costs money. People are unwilling to sort of shell out the money required to get that. Books can help, but professional intervention often, it helps a lot more. Because why? Because you're asked questions that makes you internalize right, what you are about. And if we don't do that, we basically go from relationship to relationship, repeating the same mistake. And on top of which, we have the media's ever present telling us how to think, telling us how to think about each other, telling us how women are this or men are that. And we stay at loggerheads. And we have a situation right now where, for the first time in human history, men want to be women and women want to be men. And that's literally, right? That's literally having surgery to be women, and women literally having surgery to be men, as well as the personal characteristics of a male and a female. So what we have is, but where is this coming from? Again, look outside of ourselves. It's the society. The whole Western world is pushing this agenda. So as far as being able to, doing work on yourself is good, and we should all be doing that, and we should all be trying to get therapy if we feel that we need it. But you're not going to eliminate the outside influences which is pushing that on you. The only way you can combat that is to control the exposure you have to all this media, which is trying to move you in a particular direction.
But you also have to have, I agree with you, Tony, about having some therapy and work so that you can self-reflect and you can do it in a guided way. But we also have to be really, really careful that we find the right counsellors, because when I was studying psychology back in the day and things like this, you're reading it from a Western book written by middle-class white men anyway. So now, thankfully, we've moved on and we've got networks where we have counsellors that look like ourselves, that have done research about ourselves. So that's where we need to look to have our counselling, first of all. And second of all, when it comes to operating as men or women, it's sometimes operating in the masculine energy because you've had to, not because you want to. because you have to keep going. You have to keep the roof over your head. I've said this before. You have to do those things. But if we want to move forward, which was the main point you were making, Yvonne, before, we have to be mature enough to be vulnerable with each other and know that that's not going to be abused and manipulated. I think a few weeks ago, MrCee talked about your acronym MEET, didn't you? Mm-hmm. You talked about emotional maturity. If we are emotionally mature, then when you're in a relationship, that person, that man, that masculine energy should be able to show his feminine side to you if you want, you know, in terms of the energy, be able to be vulnerable so that you can move forward together. We need to know that when one is up, the other one might be down, but we bring each other forward together. So I think that looking at being able to be vulnerable, or as MrCee might say, you don't want someone to say, nah, we can't deal with that. You don't want that. You want maturity to take it forward.
Thank you, Michelle. Well said. There was a comment from Leon Thompson. Can we bring that up? He said, there we go, complete, not compete. We should be looking for synergetic relationships with a touch of differing skill, strengthen each other and build strength and help each other in areas of weakness. I really liked what he said there. Complete, not compete. And it's, you know, I know a lot of the things that we're talking about is about mindset, really, and reprogramming the mindset that we have been set while we're unaware. But it's really about us having the mindset to actually see what's going on. If we really want to grow and evolve in our relationships in terms of this Black community, we fundamentally have to take responsibility for every aspect of our lives. And that is emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally, every kind of alley. We have to take responsibility for it. And once we take responsibility for it for ourselves, then we can then start going out into the community. Now, one of the things, I don't know if there's a directory or anything like that, but one of the things that was brought up by Mr. Tony Crossbody was the fact of counselling. And I totally 100% agree. But we need to know where to go. But on top of knowing where to go, we have to understand that it may look expensive, but what we have to reframe our mind to think is this is an investment. We have to stop looking at the pounds and the pence and think, oh, that's expensive and this and that. Actually, it's an investment into your well-being. So those of you who have said everything starts with me this evening, those of you who typed that on the thread, at the end of the day, my challenge to you tonight is to invest in you. If you was what's that new currency? Crypto. If you were, yes, if you was crypto, you yourself was cryptocurrency and you knew that the investment in you was going to bring about wealth, right? Which it will, it's just another type of wealth. Would you be willing? Would you be willing to invest? Would you be willing to make that investment in your own life? Yeah. And that's what I'm asking, because not everybody that put it on the thread. So I can only talk to those who are saying, yeah, I'm willing to actually make a difference in my own life. Because again, tonight's show isn't just about us chatting. Tonight's show is about us actually putting a line in the sand and saying change is going to come from this. So the challenge is to you. The challenge is to everybody who's listening. So if we do
Michelle, there is.
Sorry.
There's a network called the Black African and Asian Therapy Network,
right?
Where you can go and you can look for counsellors for any given reason, whether it's relationship, family, children, whichever, and you can get their credentials on there. So there are more and more places that you can find them, and maybe we do need to look at the expense of it, yes, but group counselling might make it cheaper. So maybe that's something that people need to look at as well, and just something in response.
So that we can put that up.
If you Google them, they come up straight away. But in terms of what Leon was saying about complete, not compete, I'm not too sure about that, because we need to be complete first, really, or as complete as we can be, because really you want someone that's going to complement you with an E, not supplement you. You need to be as whole as possible. So go and do the therapy first, or the talking first, and then be ready, in a ready state, to meet somebody else and see whether or not they're at the same space as you.
And what Michelle said is so important. Sorry, Yvonne, I just want to quickly pick up. What Michelle said is so important, because that's where a lot of people have this nonsense trauma, that when they find the one and then the one leaves them, they're like, oh, I feel so incomplete and feel so this, and oh, my life is never the same, because they've thought that that person has completed them as a whole, and now that the person has moved, they can never see themselves as being a whole being, which is nonsense. So what she said is so vitally important for people to understand that. Sorry,
I do feel that
in my head, because I'm coming from a place of completeness, because I am who I am. So when Leon is saying, for me, when Leon's saying be complete, it's because no one can complete you. You have to be complete yourself. But in terms of a relationship, as having one and one coming together, in my sense, in my head, that is what that complete meant, as in a couple, not as in an individual. That's how I read it. And so because we as people, nobody can complete us. Nobody. That's a myth.
But the conversation is always about my other half and all this kind of thing. And as MrCee says, oh, you know, I feel incomplete. I've lost my right arm because, you know, so and so's left me, or what have you. And if we just look at it in terms of maths, if you want something to be 100%, each of you has to be 100%, don't you? Because you put 100 and 100 together, divide it by 2, and you still get 100. You can't be 50, you get 50% otherwise. So if you think about it in mathematical terms, you need to be as whole as possible. Try and be at your 95%, try and be at your 97% before you even think about going forward in a relationship, because otherwise it's not going to prosper. I'm not saying that everyone can be complete 100%, because we all are on a journey and we all are flawed. But think about it in mathematical terms. You have to have 100 and 100, put them together, divide them by 2, and you still get 100%.
Yes, I agree. Keep talking. Someone else can come in. There's some things going on that I need to kind of sort out, because things are going on here that I don't like what I'm seeing, if you get what I'm saying. So just keep talking, please, if you don't mind. I am paying attention.
I think the problem with our one of the problems with our community, though, is that we like to spend money on things that, you know, that are really not important, and we're not spending the money where we need to, and we don't invest in our own community. So a lot of these group therapy sessions and things like that, we would not look at that as benefiting us, and we need to change our mindsets with that, and invest. The biggest thing that we can do for ourselves is invest in ourselves and our community, and that is one of the biggest problems, I think, moving forward, that we really need to change. Just trying to I get so frustrated that we so easily throw each other away, and we'd rather have an easy life, and we need to stop thinking about each other as being difficult and being hard. Sometimes we have to go through, when you go to school and you study hard, you want the best qualifications, everything that we achieve in life, we have to work hard at it. So why we think we don't need to work hard at relationships is beyond me. We're lacking communication, we're lacking trust, we're lacking all of these things that build great relationships, and we need to get back to basics. I think we need to look at our ancestries. We need to look at how families stay together. They didn't stay together because we had lots and lots of money. They stayed together because the trust was there, the love was there, the respect was there, the morals were there, and we need to really try and get back to that.
But we also have to
go on. It's fine.
We also have to invest in our children now through their education as we can. If, for example, you want your child to be well-rounded, what are you exposing them to? What are you showing them in terms of relationships between you and your partner? What are you showing them in terms of relationships between them and other people, respecting their elders? All of the basic things like that we need to revive again. How we deal with the educators of our children, what we choose, how we invest in it, how we show the youngsters coming up what respect is, because those are the formative years. By the time, Yvonne, you were talking about someone coming on that's 30, which is great, but they're already well formed. What are we doing to the ones that are coming up that we still have time to make an influence on? We really need to look at that as well. So things like some of the things I think Tony does, talking to young children, groups like that, they're really important. Showing up is really important as well. Supporting each other, showing support for each other, parenting, showing support for your adult, praising your adults that's around you, so that the youngest ones come up hearing positive things about each other in the relationship. Not the sort of go ask your mother or go ask your father, but show them that you've got a united front. There's so many things that we need to do there as well before it becomes too late, and then we've got this continual legacy.
And also to have a conversation with the young people. It's not just us telling them. We sometimes we have to allow them to ask questions and for them to say what they see, because a lot of the times we may think that we're in a healthy and a loving relationship, but the child doesn't see it as that. The child sees something completely different, and until you allow that child to have that moment to voice what they feel and what they see and how they think that your relationship is going on, you've no idea how things are in their world. No idea at all. And I mean, I say that because my youngest son is 16, and last year he was talking about a previous partner of mine who, in my mind, she was wonderful and she was wonderful with my children. But last year he told me, "Oh, Dad, I hated her. I couldn't stand her." And I was like, "What was you with her?" And I was like, "What?" But because I never had the time to, I just thought that our relationship was good. It's a healthy relationship. He would see a lovely couple together. He didn't see it like that. He had his own viewpoint of what he was seeing. And because I didn't have a conversation with him, I couldn't correct what he was seeing. And I couldn't have a conversation with him or correct his vision of what he saw. So until we had that conversation, I had no idea that's how he saw it. None
But
at
this
all.
is the thing, isn't it? This is the thing, because the people that love us, the people that care about us in our circles, always see these things, and we ignore it because we're thinking about our own, we're thinking about ourselves in the sense that we want this relationship and we want it to work and we want this thing. We don't want to be on our own, but we're not taking on board the things that people see. As I said earlier, we see from the outside more than what we see in the inside. So it's important to listen. So even if your son had come to you, MrCee, would you have paid attention to what your son had said at the time because you're in the euphoria of the relationship? So, because it's easy to say that now because you're outside of it, but do you think that you would have taken that on board had he said it at the time? Or would you have just said, oh boy, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, because we so very easily dismiss
No,
things.
I wouldn't have dismissed what he said, but what that would have shown me is that what he's seeing is something different. So it's either for me to take on board what he's saying, but also to eloquently say to him what the real situation is between me and this woman, and the reason why I've chosen her, because in his eyes that wasn't clear. So again, it's a two-way thing. It is. It's me educating him why I've made this decision, and it's also him being open as regards to how he sees it. And we both have to take both of those things on board, and then we move forward with that information. So yeah, I would never shut down any of my sons as regards to what they're saying. It's input, it's feedback, and it's vital. It's a part of growth.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people do that. So therein lies the problem. So a lot of people will dismiss what their children say because they have their own selfish reasons for why they do that, and they're not paying attention. So and then when the relationship breaks up, they're wondering why. But when they could have had that input, they didn't choose to listen to that input.
I mean, sorry, go on, Yvonne. Sorry.
No, go. You finish up.
I was saying it kind of all ties back into what you guys were saying earlier on about about this whole awareness thing. Is that sometimes the awareness has to go beyond your own comprehension of what's happening. Tony made a real good point as regards to the influences outside of the relationships and outside of our culture as regards to what's happening with society. But I think, again, we have to be aware of that, and we have to make our children aware of that as well. But after we've had that awareness, the second thing is barriers. You've got to be able to put your barriers in place that protects you from these things. And it allows you to filter what comes through. So, again, it's even like I love certain TV programs, but I have my filters as regards to what I take in to myself. And the same thing what I do with my boys, I make them very much aware of certain things. And, the Bible speaks everything in parables. And I think it's a great way of teaching people and showing people examples. So, like with my sons, again, with this whole Noel Clarke situation, I use King Kong to explain that to them. That King Kong is a black man. And once you take a black man out of his natural habitat, and you go and parade him in front of all these white people, no matter how high he climb, he doesn't have to do anything wrong for them to shoot him down. So you got to understand that, when you want to walk amongst certain people and certain cultures, your ass has to be squeaky clean, because if it's not, your whole world's going to come crumbling down. And they shot down King Kong, and he never troubled no white woman. You understand? He just saved white women. But Noel Clarke, he feels so that's why he's in that situation, son. So learn that lesson. You know what I mean? But the other thing what we have to do as well is, like, the Bible has got certain things in it. It's got the 10 Commandments. They're there. It's from God to his people. And so many other religions have their little commandments, or, you know, if you're Jehovah's Witness, you can't give blood to your own child. If you're Catholic, this, that, and the other. If you're Church of England, this. We need to have our own charter as people, as a community, and as Black people. The things that we do and the things that we don't do. You know, many years ago, I did it as a joke. I called it the Book of Black. This is something that we get when we're subconsciously. We get this as a child from our grandparents and our parents. The Book of Black, it tells you what you can do and what you can't do. But we really do need one now. We really do need a charter for ourselves as African people to say, these are the things which we abide by, and these are the things which under no circumstances do we get involved in. And we need to practice it. We need to teach it to our children, and that's the only way we can move forward.
Thank you, MrCee. We're coming down to the end of the show. There's been a lot of comments on the thread. One, Zora says, we do not need to seek acceptance from our children. Although we need to consider their views, they should not be part of the final decision. Children will learn through positive examples. I don't actually agree with that at all. And the reason why I don't agree with that is because I was that child in the situation of MrCee. And for the child to thrive, the child needs to be happy. And if the child has made a declaration that they're not happy, you have to consider that, whether you want to or not. It's all, and I think it's what Faye was saying about the selfishness of wanting what you want. It doesn't work that way. The child, if the child is of living that childhood age, living in the home, and you're bringing in somebody else that the child does not like or get on with, you are going to have hell, and it is really not worth it. And that child will grow up and be scarred and resent you for the rest of their lives. I'm just saying. And I'm taking it from a viewpoint of living the experience. So sometimes I think in all of this, and as we're coming down to the closing comments, in all of this, one of the things that I think it was Faye and MrCee said, listening to learn, listen to hear. If we're going to make and give the right example to our children, we have to listen to them too, because they are people and they are coming up. They are not growing down, but they will grow up, and they will make the same, if not worse, mistakes that we have made because of the examples that we have made through our own selfishness. And so, and this is part of the problem. The reason why our youngsters are living the way that they are now is not because they want to do stuff their way. It is because of us. It's because we have not been in the position that we were supposed to be in. We have not thought this thing through. And yes, we are the first generation, most of us are first generation UK, and we're finding our way, and we've made mistakes, and we have made them along, big ones along the way. But when we don't learn from those mistakes, that's when we have all of these issues. There are issues, I think Tony mentioned it, he posed a question in the first one with, you know, all of the stabbings and all of the things and the single mothers. Whose fault is that? And without laying blame on the mothers, because I'm not laying blame, but we have to understand that the father not being in the home and not being there, or that father figure not being there, has had an impact on our young people. Hence why we are in this situation where, and now we're looking at as the elders, and our relationships are crumbling as well, because we are not in our position. We haven't accepted things that have gone on wrong. We haven't accepted our part. We haven't been aware of all the other elements that have gone on, the TV and the church and the education and all of the subliminal messages. We haven't been aware of those. And so we're not able to align with how relationships are supposed to be, or even the examples that we had from our parents. Their journey was different. They grew up in the West Indies, they grew up in certain ways, and certain things weren't great for them, but they made it work when they got here to a degree with the knowledge that they had. And that's all we can do. We can only work with the knowledge that we have. So the knowledge that we have now is that we have to, these are the things that have come out of the show, is learn to trust the self, be at one with ourselves, work on ourselves, do the work, and create a relationship with ourselves first. 2 is to manage our expectations of those who are outside of us, but also manage our expectations of ourselves. Number 3 is to let go of the past. Let the past be the past. Number 4, I've got don't compromise on your standards, and show what your standard is and teach what the standard is to those who are coming up. But not only that, make sure that the standard that you set is the standard that you're living by, i.e. Derek Jackson. Let's move on. Next one is trust is internal, not external. So trust starts here, starts within. It's not external. And you're looking to trust someone else, but you don't actually trust yourself. These are all the points that has come up from this panel tonight. There must be a time of self-reflection. This is key. And these are in no particular order, by the way. These are just points that I've scribbled down. The next one is to communicate and listen to understand, rather listening to respond. And the last one, there's another one, is to recognize the influence and how they are infiltrating the mind. Take responsibility for that. And the last one here is to remember that it's up to the individual to have manners, respect, and self-value. These are the points that have come from this panel tonight. We have a few more minutes left, and so I want each one of you, you've got like a minute and a half, to say what you have got out of this conversation tonight. Your takeaways. And let's start with Faye. I'm going to go around how the panel appears on my screen. So Faye, Miche'l Michel, Tony Crossbody, and MrCee. That's how we go around.
My real takeaway is for me personally is to continue to work on myself, to not accept bad behavior, to not accept to listen, and to pay attention, because a lot of the time the flags are there and we miss the flags.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Faye. Good points. Miche'l Michel?
My takeaway from this, I think, is to not drink bush for other people's fever, really. I don't particularly distrust men. I do it on an individual basis. So that's for me. My other takeaway is to continue to listen, to understand. And I appreciate listening to the two gentlemen, of course the ladies, but the two gentlemen tonight, to hear what they had to say.
Thank you, my darling. Thank you for that. Mr. Crossbody?
Yes, I would equally say what the women had to say was very interesting, and I think a lot of us men can take something away from what was said. My takeaway would be please be aware that there are outside forces that are trying to influence your thinking. Right? This system is not family oriented. It's not oriented for men and women to stay together, and especially the Black family. So our example in the household is extremely important. So if we're going to be having a revolving door of partners, whether we're men or women, this is not a good look going forward for our children. I'm going to tell you something. You're going to be quite shocked, right? I talk to a lot of young people, and I'm going to tell you something. They have no respect for our generation.
I'm not surprised.
I'll tell you the truth. They see us as Peter Pan, middle-aged people that don't want to grow old.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Where are you going at raving at 1 o'clock in the morning, Mum? And they're going to their bed. Yeah? Mm-hmm. How you listen to music for 10 hours a day? That's what you should be doing. You put your slippers on and go to your bed. Right? They don't have much respect for this Generation X. This Generation X are continuing to live their life like they're teenagers, and many of us don't realize we're getting old. And unfortunately, in our quest for quote-unquote happiness, we have stumbled our children as far as an example is concerned. And if you want to know whether you've done a good job as an example now, just watch how your children are in their relationships, because their understanding of love has been come from us as parents.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell you that firsthand. A number of young people have said this. We don't respect you as elders, and we don't come to you for nothing because you ain't got nothing to teach us. Right? You're worse than us. And so this is obviously something we ain't got time to touch on it now because we're coming to the end of the show. But I could tell you a lot of the things that they've said. We've not been the best examples. I mean, we've talked about the previous generation. We know they weren't that great, but we, Generation X, we've got a lot to answer for. You know, so when you sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind.
Thank you, Mr. Crossbody. Hold that thought there. I'm going to bring MrCee in, and now I'm going to come with an invitation. So come in, MrCee.
I just want to say thank you to everybody on the panel today for their insight and their wisdom and their experience. I'm going to keep it short. I'm going to say that it's lovely to converse with the ladies and, of course, yourself as well, Tony. And what should I take away from this? I should take away, why take away a snack when you can always acquire higher?
You need a little beating, you know, MrCee. you
Listen to the words. Why take away a snack when you can acquire higher? That's what I'm saying, man. Be patient. Be patient, because the truth is, a lot of us, we rush because the time is ticking. And we feel that person's not going to be. I'm single, they're single. So you know what? Let's date within the next 2 weeks. Let's by week 4, let's be man and woman, and by week let's move into each other's yard. Wait, be patient. You know what I mean? Make sure that your criteria is being set. That, you know, look out for, as people have been saying, the little intuition, the little gut feelings. Examine them. Just be patient and wait, man. You know what I mean? Better is coming for you. And the most important thing, I think, what I'll leave with is, for me, one of my biggest fears was always that, you know, that I wouldn't find somebody better. As much as we've all got problems, there are some beautiful people out there. I meet them on a weekly basis. There's lovely people out there. If you look for them, you will find them. 100%.
Absolutely. Thank you, MrCee. So we have come to the end of the show. However, we have tackled some of the issues, but that what was said in the beginning was about the future generation, which we haven't had a chance to touch on, which I knew in my heart of hearts that we wouldn't. Because I think that the subject matter is quite a big subject and to cover it. So I would like to extend an invitation to this panel. This is the whole panel. to meet me here again next week for the final. Because I think we've had some really good points. I think some points that people can really glean to and go away with and really think about for themselves. But also, I think it's important that we leave. As I said, I'm going on holiday, taking a break from the show for a couple of weeks. And I think it's really important to leave the show on a real positive high. So if you guys would be willing to come back here next week, so we're going to talk about the younger generation and how we move forward. And I'd love to hear more about, you know, the things that the young people have said to you, and I will converse with some of the things young people have said to me in where I work, and because I work with young people as well as women. I know Miche'l Michel is also in that vein as well, and so is well, all of the panel members actually work with young people to some degree in some shape or form. So would you be willing, panel members, to meet me back here next week between the hours of 10 and midnight for the final show to discuss how we move forward for our young people and how we can better ourselves to be a better example for them so they actually take us seriously? Are we willing?
Absolutely.
Your wish is our command. We shall make ourselves available.
Thank you very much.
Is it possible that we could have a young person as well on the panel?
When you say young, give me an age.
Well, I think because of the nature of what we're talking about, I think between 16 and 18 would be lovely.
16 and 18.
I mean, look, if
18 and 20.
Over 18.
Yeah, 18 and 20.
Because the 16-year-old is not of age to talk these things.
Not that, it's safeguarding.
A watershed.
And it's
I think
safeguarding.
if their parents around, then okay, all right. I'm gonna speak to my 16-year-old and see what he says.
Okay, it would be good to have one of each, a girl and a boy.
I don't produce girls. I only produce kings.
I produce both. Hello.
Then you speak to your.
Mine are older. My children are older. Mine are 23 and 35 and 35.
Yeah, I'll speak to my youngest and see what he says. If not, I'll get his viewpoints and bring back his viewpoints. I just think it's important that we actually hear something from what young people are actually saying, rather than us speaking on their behalf. That's what I think.
Yeah. And if there is a parent, actually, if there is a parent who is willing to allow their young person to be part of the panel, my preference would be 18 to 21. That would be my preference, to be fair. And that's just covering all safeguarding issues. But if there is a parent who is willing to be with their child and their child's willing to come on, a female and a male, please DM me ASAP so that we can arrange to have that young person on to talk about their views. Because we've got people here listening, so we should be able to find a few young people to come on the thread just to chat and see how they feel. Yeah, so guys, if there's anybody who is willing to do that, DM me. You guys should have my email address is info@YvonneMichel.com. I don't know if the guys could put that up on the screen just quickly. You should have it already. info@YvonneMichel with 1L.com.
Yvonne.
Yeah.
Can I just be the boring person here?
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, people that are around 16 are right in the middle of their assessments.
Right, yes.
At school, okay? And this year is very different. They're doing assessments every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, we need to be really, really mindful of having people that are too young at the moment. I would agree over 18 because they are in a difficult situation, and I wouldn't be happy to have them up late at night talking about things like this right in the middle of this assessment period. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, okay. I've heard Yeah, 18 to 20. I know that. I mean, my daughter's at university. She's doing her dissertation, so I wouldn't even ask her. And she's older. She's like the 21, 22 age. I wouldn't ask her. But again, if there is somebody between the ages of 18 and 21, I think it would make it a little bit easier if we can do that. So, guys,
just a quick suggestion before you go, Yvonne. If you're gonna have two young people, then two of us as adults don't need to be here, because otherwise what's going to happen is there's not going to be enough exposure for them to air their views, because there's too many people that might want to say something. So perhaps two adults and two youngsters, so that they can speak, and then the adults can sort of chime in with, you know, whatever their views are, as opposed to having 6 people on.
Yeah, because we've reduced the numbers of people on the show in terms of the panel. But what I might do is have them on first, so they're not on too late.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good idea.
Yeah, and then bring in the rest of the panel.
Okay.
Because I'm mindful, this is a good panel. We've worked together. It's been a great show, and I think it's flowed really nicely. So if we can get the 2 youngsters, we can pull them in early, and then bring in the rest of the panel a little bit later, so everybody gets to speak. So is everybody happy with that on the panel? We'll work towards that. Yeah. All right. So my panel members, I want to thank you, MrCee. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Mr. Crossbody, thank you, sir, for being here. You're looking very, I must say, the men are looking very dapper this evening. You know.
You know what, Yvonne? I knew you'd be wearing your sexy dress.
Well, see.
So you know what? It would be a crime for me not to make an effort and put on something.
Oh,
I even spray on a little cologne. Look, smell.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, just for you, babe. Just for you.
Okay. Ladies, thank you guys. Miche'l Michel, thank you so much. Bye.
Tony's wearing Lynx Africa, the snack you can't refuse.
Oh my goodness. Oh dear. Guys, always a pleasure. Guys, those of you who are on Facebook, I want to wish you a good evening. Thank you for your support. Those of you who are on YouTube, thank you for your support. Those of you who are watching from MediaNet Live TV, thank you so much. From Yvonne Michèle TV, thank you so much. This is the end of the show. We'll be back for the finale next week. It'll be the last show for a couple of weeks. I'm going to take a little bit of a break, but do join us here between the hours of 10 and midnight next week, Tuesday, for more After Dark conversations. But for now, ciao, ciao. Take care.
You ready? You got me running, got me running. Shake it, shake it, shake it.